So I'm Kirsten Fossum. I work out of the University of Galway. I'm a postdoctoral researcher on the Port Air project. And so one of the main things I do is focus on aerosol composition, the chemical composition, what the particles are made of. The chemical composition is quite important. It can determine health effects, how toxic things are. It can determine how readily they'll form larger particles. So there's so many sources of particles in the port area. We have, ground transportation, we have ship transportation, we have a variety of fuel types, and it makes it a bit difficult actually because a lot of the fuel types for heavy goods vehicles or cars for passenger loading onto ferries, these have very similar chemical signatures. And so that kind of makes it difficult to extract all the sources. You have things like industrial sources, and then you have everything that's happening in Dublin city centre, which is only a few kilometres away, which we also find here because the prevailing wind direction is actually coming normally from the city to the port. So we have all kinds of sources and they all have their own chemical signatures, and we're striving to separate them out. One of the aims of this project is to actually be able to take all of the overlapping pollution sources, whether they be local pollution spikes or regional background concentrations, and be able to use different mathematical techniques or scientific techniques to extract the sources themselves. So far our results have been quite interesting. So there are other sites around Dublin that tell us information about what's going on with the particulate matter and air quality around Dublin. And on the whole, when we see regional pollution events, we see them at all the sites. But in Dublin Port, we seem to have elevated particulate matter levels, which is really important for its human health impacts. We also see these very extreme local pollution spikes. And currently we're trying to figure out where they're coming from. They could be trucks, they could be ship stacks, they could be another industrial source we haven't identified yet. So that's the goal over the next couple of months, is to identify these sources. And we can also tell that the particulate matter over these short-lived periods are very high. They're at levels that we experience in Dublin during our highest levels of pollution during winter time, which are also kind of close to Beijing or larger city level. So these are very significant spikes. They're short-lived, but they're quite interesting. And we like to measure the size because the size tells us not only about what's going on or how they're forming. If they're very small, maybe they've been recently formed, but also about how they're going to affect humans, how far they can travel through the body. Are they going to travel to the trachea? Are they going to travel to the lungs? Are they going to be so small that they travel up, the nerve endings and into the brain? And so these are beginning to be really important questions that we ask ourselves about how air pollution affects human health in the long term.